Hello everyone and welcome back to the arena for another season of Dungeons & Death Battles, the series where we search for the most lethal monster in all of Dungeons & Dragons. The rules are simple, the fight takes place in the arena, combatants start 30 feet apart, there is no fleeing the arena, and victory is achieved by kill only. In this third season of Dungeons & Death Battles, 16 deadly dungeon denizens will be duking it out to find out which one of them is worthy of being crowned the CR3 Arena Champion. On today's fight card we have a pair of horrors that really put some potency behind the idea of the death stare, with the creeping Basilisk taking on the multi-eyed Spectator in a battle to find out which of these deadly denizens really has their eye on the prize. Both monsters are still warming up for combat, so let's jump into a competitor analysis and see just what these creatures have to offer. Up first we have the Basilisk, a physically based monstrosity, boasting 52 average hit points and 15 AC thanks to its thick, scaled hide. Its stat spread isn't the most impressive thing we've seen in the arena, with below average mental stats and an 8 in dexterity looking to be balanced out by its much more impressive 16 strength and 15 constitution. That being said, this 8-legged lumbering lizard has an extremely potent trump card, and that comes in the form of its petrifying gaze, an ability that could end combat before it even begins. And then over on the opposite side of the arena, a Spectator has been called forth, a lesser beholder bound to the conjurer who summoned it for 101 years of servitude. Its 4 eye-stalked tentacles already beginning to rove and search for the target its master has deemed unworthy of continued existence, its leathery green body hovering motionless in place as it prepares its next move. The Spectator boasts a much stronger set of stats than its reptilian opponent, with an 8 strength being its only real downfall. 14s in dexterity and constitution make this ball of death tough to bring down, with its mental stats showcasing the ability to think, plan and plot. The Spectator does have the lower hit point average of 39, with a slightly lower AC of 14 than its Basilisk opponent, but the real danger posed by this aberration hailing from worlds beyond comes from its eye stalks and their ability to blast opponents with deadly rays, these being confusion, paralyzing, fear, and wounding. The Spectator can use 2 of these per round, so we recommend you wear your arena-issue Kobold Mafia Ray Diffusion Goggles at all times during this battle. Failure of or failure to use goggles cannot be blamed on the Kobold Mafia or associates. You'll probably put them on wrong and can't prove anything anyway. Side effects of not wearing goggles can include, but is not limited to, feelings of immense fear and paranoia, temporary paralysis, muddled brain, or death. And with those announcements out the way, the competitors are ready, and it's time to roll for initiative, starting with the Basilisk and its -1 modifier. So rolling in for the Basilisk right here again, -1 to this, and that is an 11 -1 for 10, still pretty respectable, very average roll there. Let's see if the Spectator can up that at all and steal away the initiative. Spectator rolling in +2 to this, and with a 10 +2 for 12, that is just going to scrape over the top of the Basilisk there and is going to cement the Spectator in pole position as we jump into this quarter-final bout. But as the Spectator sees his initiative, it starts to begin to feel heavy and slightly more weighed down than usual as the Basilisk's petrifying gaze kicks into action. Now, if a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the Basilisk and the 2 of them can see each other, which they most certainly can, especially due to that Spectator's 5 sets of eyes, the Basilisk can force the creature to make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, which it will of course be doing as it attempts to petrify the Spectator, as it attempts to encapsulate the Spectator's spheroid body in a wreath of stone. And so the first saving throw coming into this battle straight out of the gate, with the Spectator having to now roll in a DC 12 Constitution saving throw to avoid the beginning of its petrification. Now this is a Constitution saving throw. The Spectator does have +2 to this roll, so it's looking to be a 12. Rolling in, very important roll for the Spectator, and a natural 1 immediately rolled in there from our eyeball does mean that it is undergoing the very start of the petrification process. The Basilisk's eyes simply locking on, and having 5, the Spectator has been unable to avoid the potent magic which is beginning to lock down its body and nervous system, as it does indeed begin to turn to stone. And after this crucial failure there from the Spectator, that does mean that it has the restrained condition. Its speed has been reduced to 0 and can't increase. Attack rolls against it have advantage and its attack rolls have disadvantage, and it does of course have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. And now for the Spectator, this does mean that it of course cannot fly up and out of range of the Basilisk, but lest we forget, it is still the Spectator's turn and it is still able to make its attacks. I'm feeling the pressure of the petrification process that the Spectator is going to waste no time at all in dropping a fear ray against the Basilisk here in an attempt to render its opponent frightened. So the Basilisk will now be rolling with a DC 13 Wisdom saving throw, or be frightened for 1 minute. And now the Basilisk is not the greatest at Wisdom and does have a -1 modifier to this, so it's looking for a 14 or higher on this roll. Basilisk rolling in Wisdom saving throw against Fear Ray. and that is a 12 minus 1 for 11, which does mean that the Basilisk is now terrified of that Spectator and will be unable to move any further towards its foe. And this does also mean that it has disadvantage on ability checks or attack rolls while the source of its fear is within line of sight. Thankfully though for the Basilisk, that does not affect saving throws, as a wounding ray is also flying across the arena, green and orange light bathing the arena in Technicolor spectacle. Now for this one, the Basilisk needs to make a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, and now it does have a +2 to this one, so this one should be a little bit more within its favor. So rolling in for the Basilisk now, DC 13 Constitution saving throw against wounding ray. But with a 7 +2 for 9, it has failed this one as well. That fear obviously taking a deep root in its brain, as it takes the full wrath of 3d10 points of necrotic damage. And now rolling in, Spectator, 3d10 points of necrotic damage from the wounding ray. And that is a very, very strong hit right there, with 6 and a 4 for 10, +8, bringing that all the way up to 18 points of damage, which is going to drop the Basilisk down to just 34 hit points after that initial barrage. An absolute roller coaster of a turn there from the Spectator, but that will be all it can do as we hand over to the Basilisk. And now due to that fear ray, our Lumbering Lizard is unable to make any progress in moving towards the Spectator, and it is going to do what it can and is going to prowl around the outside perimeter of its opponent, just trying to build up some courage to enable it to plunge into the fray. And there is very little else that the Basilisk can do in this situation other than just wait it out. But now, as we come to the end of the Basilisk's turn, it will be rolling in to see if it can end that frightened condition on itself. And now this roll will be at disadvantage, as the Spectator is still very much within the Basilisk's line of sight. And so once again, we are rolling in with that Wisdom saving throw. A -1 modifier to this. Basilisk looking for a 14 on the dice at disadvantage. Throwing in now, and with a 13 and a 7 on the dice. Neither of those would have been enough to break the frightened condition, as the Basilisk remained terrified, with that 7 -1 coming out to 6. So with that in mind, we are handing over to the Spectator, which isn't out of the woods by any means yet, as it is still in the process of being petrified and turned to stone. The lower parts of its eye stalks already beginning to calcify, but it does get a turn before anything else happens. It is still unable to move, but its eye stalks are still whipping around wildly, looking to put a stop to the Basilisk before it can do any further damage. And so this time the Spectator is going to fire off a paralyzing ray first, a blaze of blue light flying towards the Basilisk as it prepares to make a DC 13 Constitution saving throw. So again, Constitution should be its better stat here to roll with, but as was proved last time, that is not always the case, but it does have a +2 to this. Let's see if the Basilisk can withstand this paralyzing ray. And so rolling in, and with a 19 +2 for 21, the Basilisk simply turns to the side, blocking out the paralyzing ray and deflecting it away with its scales. The Spectator not amused as it fires off yet another wounding ray in an attempt to bring down the Basilisk. And so once again, Basilisk, DC 13 Constitution saving throw to block out the wounding ray's damage. And with a 3 +2 for 5, that is not gonna matter. It is not gonna manage it, and will once again be taking the brunt of 3d10 points of necrotic damage. The Spectator means business and is really trying to shred through its opponent here. And so 3d10 coming in once again, this eye stalk proving to be incredibly dangerous. And that is some incredibly solid damage there once again, with a 1 +7 for 8, plus that 10 for another 18 points of damage. The Spectator's been incredibly consistent with his output, and the Basilisk is struggling because of it, and has been dropped from 34 down to just 16 hit points after that second barrage. But now this roll right here could change everything, as the petrifying gaze of the Basilisk is still working its way through the Spectator's orb-like body. The calcification process not letting up in the face of all the adversity that's been thrown at the Basilisk. And so the Spectator must now once again be rolling in with a DC 12 Constitution saving throw, or it will fully succumb to the Basilisk's petrifying gaze, becoming yet another one of the Basilisk's masterwork statues. And so incredibly important roll right here for the Spectator. DC 12 Constitution saving throw +2 to this roll. Spectator rolling in. And that is a 10 +2 for 12, which does mean that the Spectator has met the DC spot on, dead on the mark, and it has ended the petrification process on itself for now. No doubt a loud sigh of relief coming from the Spectator's conjurer backstage, as it just makes the DC by a hair. But sometimes that is all it takes, and the Spectator has snapped itself out of the Basilisk's petrifying gaze, which does mean that it is no longer restrained. But that does end its turn as we hand back over to the Basilisk, which is still under the effects of fear, and unfortunately will be be unable to make any progress towards the Spectator, merely hissing and growling away at its opponent as it continues to circle around the arena, trying to shake itself out of its terrified stupor. And that is what it will try to do as we come through to the end of its turn. It will be rolling that DC 13 Wisdom saving throw to try and snap out of it. Once again, still at disadvantage here. So rolling in for the Basilisk. And with 2 5s, -1 for 4, the Basilisk remains afraid. But as we hand over to the Spectator once again, relief only allowed to temporarily wash through it as it begins to feel the Basilisk gaze on it once again. It has only just regained its movement, so has been unable to move out of that 30-foot range of the Basilisk, which does mean that once again, it must roll to see if it can stave off that petrifying gaze, which really is a permanent feature to watch out for from the Basilisk, and is the main reason it is such a deadly monster to face. And given that the Spectator has been blasting away with its eye rays this whole time, it has been unable to avert its own gaze, so must deal with the consequences and roll a DC 12 Constitution saving throw once again. So rolling in to avoid that restrained condition. Having felt the effects last time, it is not going to want to have to deal with that again. So let's see what it can do. +2 to this. And that is an 18 +2 for 20, which of course means that that Spectator has saved against the Basilisk's petrifying gaze and will be free to do as it wants this turn. And it is going to waste absolutely no time at all in flying 30 feet upwards into the air, trying to put as much distance between itself and the Basilisk as possible. And then once again, it is going to try and go in with that paralyzing ray, a DC 13 Constitution saving throw for the Basilisk here. Again, +2 to this. And with a 2 +2 for 4, the Basilisk is really not doing great here. It turns out that being terrified during a battle is a surefire way to succumb to more conditions. But this is of course exactly what the Spectator wanted to achieve, as the Basilisk suddenly freezes up, becoming paralyzed. And now this does have the adverse effect for the Basilisk that it cannot force its petrifying gaze upon a target while incapacitated. The incapacitated condition of course being part and parcel of the paralyzed condition, so that has been nullified for the time being, something that the Spectator will be very glad to hear indeed. Now once again, we will be rolling in with the Basilisk to make a Constitution saving throw against that Spectator and its wounding ray, which once again is leaping across the battlefield. A blazing blast of green energy once again lighting up the stands as the necrotic projectile whizzes its way towards the Basilisk. So once again, DC 13 Constitution saving throw right here. Basilisk gets a +2. And once again with a 7 +2 for 9. That is unfortunately going to be another failure from the Basilisk, which has not been able to stave off a single one of these wounding rays. And the Spectator very much looking to finish the job right here. It has had some great success thus far with landing some very, very potent wounding rays. And let's see if it can seal the deal right here and take the Basilisk out of the tournament. And once again, 3d10 points of necrotic damage rolling in. And there we have it. A 10, a 6, and a 3 coming together for 19 points of damage, which is going to slightly up the Spectator's average damage output this round by landing 19 points of damage, bringing the Basilisk down in a splendid blast of necrotizing color. And as the Basilisk's flesh and bones begin to melt away under that sheer concentration of necrotic damage, the Spectator floats up into the rafters of the arena, showboating its victory with celebratory blasts coming from its eye stalks, lighting up the arena with a firework-like celebration. And that splendid display of combat prowess will see the Spectator rise through the ranks into the quarterfinal round here at Dungeons & Death Battles, and I hope you'll join me again next time when the Gold Dragon Wormling takes on the Hook Horror, which will be following on from what could have been the most dazzling displays of arena combat yet. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider dropping a like on the video, commenting down below, and subscribing to the channel. I also have a Patreon which includes both free and paid tiers, and hosts things like votes in which you can go and show your support for your favourite monsters. And now with all that said, thank you once again very much for watching, and I will see you very soon in another one.